Hi everyone, my name is William. Today's lecture is about MVC. I will cover what is MVC, why should we use MVC, and where do I start. MVC stands for Model View and Controller. It was introduced in the 1970s and today it has become very popular in the software development community. To explain the concepts of MVC, I will use a simple user authentication process. So the scenario here starts. As a user, you provide your username and password. On the server, we check if your credentials are valid, then we display the home page. Or otherwise, we display the arrow back to the user. So how the simple process is being captured and implemented in MVC? What is the responsibility of each component, model, view, and controller in the MVC design pattern? How do they interact with each other? That is what we are going to discover here. So as a user, when you hit the login button, you are actually sending a request to the server. On the server, the controller is listening. Controller in MVC design is the guy that handles all the requests from the user, performs all the business logic in your application. In our simple login process, it performs some simple validation. For example, it checking if your email address has the correct format or not. In MVC design, the controller, however, doesn't have any knowledge about your application data, but the model does. The model handles all the data related logic. It queries data from the database and updates data into the database according to the business logic defined in the controller. In our case, the controller we ask the model to check whether or not the email address and password provided by the user are present in the database, then respond back to the controller. The controller then decides what is the view to display to the user. If the credentials are valid, then it's going to display the home page, or otherwise it's going to display arrow. The job of displaying the information back to the user belongs to the view. It simply display UI logic to the user to show the result of user interaction with the website. So in a nutshell, in the MVC design pattern, we have three components: model, view, and controller. Each of these components interact with each other to form the flow of your web application. Now I will explain why should we use MVC and what are the benefits of MVC. I think one of the most important benefits of MVC is that it nicely separates the application into different components so that we can easily evolve our software over time while maintaining the quality at the same time. To understand it, I will take you into the implementation of the login process using Microsoft ASP.NET MVC framework. So here we have three components: model, view, and controller. The view in MVC is a very simple. It just capture two input elements, email and password. There's no business logic or data related logic code in here. Now we take a look at the controller side. It takes login model as an input and then call the model to validate the credentials. If the validation result is valid, then it's gonna redirect the user into the home page, or otherwise it's gonna add an arrow and then display back to the login page. The model, it is implemented in the validate credential method. So you see here, every component, model, view, and controller is captured nicely in its own place. So where do I start from here? I provide you with a link to MVC. It has all the documents to start an MVC web application with ASP.NET MVC framework. Thank you, and if you have any question, please ask me.